Okay, so if we look at problem number 29, let's just kind of read through it and just lay down some information together. Lowell Corporation wishes to establish a sinking fund to retire a $200,000 debt that is due in 10 years. If the investment is going to earn at the rate of 9% per year, so an interest rate of 9% per year compounded quarterly. Okay, so it's going to be 4 times a year for a total of 10 years. We want to find the amount of money of the quarterly deposit that must be paid in order to accumulate the required sum. So again, a sinking fund is they're saving money for the future. The future amount of money they want is $200,000. And we're starting at a $0 balance, and we just need to find the payments. Okay, so plugging that into our calculator, we will get monthly payments for that corporation of $3,135.48. And just real quick, I just want to show you guys also, same kind of thing we've been looking at. If you take the number of payments that they're making, so they're making these $3,135 payments, and they're making a total of, looks like 40 of them. If we type that in your calculator, you're going to get $125,419.20. Okay, that's basically what they're giving away to the bank is just $125,000. But what's going to happen is because they're earning the money, because this company is earning the interest, they actually are going to get a chance to have $200,000. So the difference between the two, which is, basically $75,000, that's free now for the corporation because they're deciding to set aside the money now. They're making the payments now. They're making these $3,000 payments, and as they give it to the bank, they're earning the interest. This company's earning the interest. So they're not having to set aside. In other words, come 10 years from now, they don't have to spend $200,000 because they've been setting aside, they've been slowly earning it. They only had to really set aside was $125,000, and that's it. Okay? So definitely benefit to look at some of these. But all right, number 13, example 13, which is 33 in the book. Okay, and then with 33, Robin's going to accumulate a sum of $450,000. That's her goal, is to get $450,000. Wouldn't that be nice to have $450,000? Okay, and she's going to retire with that. The time of retirement, which is 30 years from now. So she's going to be doing this for 30 years, and she's going to do this through monthly payments. So she's doing 12 payments a year for 30 years. It's going to interest at 10%, which is great. That's crazy to get that high. The present value is 0 because she's hoping to save up to that. So let's find our payments. If we go into our calculators and have it do the work for us, we will find that Robin, all she has to do is set aside, whoops, I was going to put the negative in there because I'm just going to copy exactly what it says, but she has to set aside all she has to do is $199.07 every month as she knows she's going to retire in 30 years. So think about this more like you guys. When you start to graduate from high school, not high school, but from college, as soon as you graduate, all she has to do is set aside basically $200 every month. Because if you graduate, let's say you graduate at 22, by the time then 30 years later, when you're in your 50s, you can almost have $500,000 saved up if you just set aside $200 a month. Now, granted, this is a nice interest rate, 10%. That's really, really nice to find. And if you want to look at it, how much she actually spends over this, if you take that $199 and you multiply it times the number of payments she's going to make, which is just $360, the 30 times 12. Okay, so if you do that times the $199.07 that she's making, she's only spending $71,665.20. That's all that she's actually paying out of her pocket. Look at the difference between that and $450,000. That's basically, okay, if I look at it, $378,000 in interest. Look at that crazy interest just because she's starting now. And the key is that interest rate's 10%, which is great. But the fact is she's starting and she's allowing 30 years for all this to accumulate. Yeah, so hopefully I'm motivating you guys to to start saving money as soon as you graduate from college. Just look, $200 a month. That's really not that bad at all. Not at all. And with 37, let's read through it and see what kind of information we can get as we go throughout it. So Dan's going to contemplate trading in his car for a new one. he can afford a monthly payment of at most $400. So the payment we'll say is $400, and he says monthly, so 12 over there. The prevailing interest rate is 7.2%, so I is 7.2. And compounded monthly for a 48-month loan, so it's basically telling you he's going to be making 48 equal payments of those. The future value of any kind of car loan is always 0. Okay, right now we want to know is what is the most expensive car that Dan can afford. So what is he going to get this loan for? And knowing that he's going to get at least an $8,000 trade-in for his other car. Okay, so basically it's going to be this loan amount we're about to find, and then we can add on $8,000 because he's naturally going to get $8,000, but then he's just going to take the loan amount for the rest of it. Okay, so let's go into our calculators and have this do this for us. And then when you get all that information in there, it looks like the present value of the loan would be $16,639.53. Okay, so what he can do is actually pay, that's how much the loan's going to be for, but he's also going to get at least an $8,000 trade-in value for it. So all in all, the car price, the car dollar amount that he can get is those two combined together. So $24,639.53. If, looks like, what is his name? If Dan, if he wants to be able to pay at most $400, then he can look for at most a $24,000 car. Not too bad, but you can get some reasonable cars for just $24,000, that's for sure. Okay, the last problem, number 42. Okay, so now looking at number 42, let's read through it a little bit. It's kind of going to be done into 2 equal parts. Okay, we're going to have to look at 2 different things when we go throughout this, because it's like a 5 year ago and then there's a kind of a current thing going on. So let's read through this closely. It says Josh purchased a condo 5 years ago for $180,000. He made a down payment of 20% and then financed the balance with a 30-year conventional mortgage. Okay, let's stop right there for a second. Let's just talk about, this is the basic, let's call this first one here, because we're going to do this twice actually. This is going to be the initial loan right here. All this that I'm about to find right here. Okay, so he's doing a 30-year loan and he's making monthly payments. Talks about we have an interest rate of 7% every year. Now the present value, the current value of the loan, when he takes this loan out, he says it's basically he made a 20% down payment. So then that means that the loan amount is just 80% of the value. So 80% of $180,000. That's what the loan's for. Okay, so it's not necessarily of $180,000. It's just 80% of it because he paid the 20% otherwise. Okay, we're going to find payments. The future value obviously is 0 because this is a loan, and the number each year is going to be 12. So let's find the payment real quick. Okay, so now we've got that all figured out. Let's read through the rest of the problem. And it basically says now that the condo, it's been 5 years. Okay, so this was the initial loan back 5 years ago. Now it's 5 years later. And the condo is now appraised at $250,000, and he plans to start his own business and wishes to tap into the equity. If Josh can secure a new mortgage to refinance his condo based on 80% of the appraised value, how much can Josh muster for his business? Okay, so here's the thing. We want to find equity. And basically what equity is all about is how much money that you have given to the bank. Okay, so let's think about it. Back 5 years ago, what all did he give to the bank? Well, he gave to the bank 20% of the initial value, so 20% of the $180,000. And then since then, on top of that, he's been making these $958 payments for 5 years, every month for 5 years. And that right there is his total equity. Equity is how much money you've given to the bank because they consider that as you're good for that money. Doesn't really matter of like what the rest of the loan is or anything like that. It's more the fact of how much money you have given to the bank. They consider you're good for it. Okay, so when we add these two up, then what? Let's see, what is his name again? Josh. It's like, what is his name? Then Josh, in his total equity, when we add this up, has $93,000 $482.40. Okay, so it doesn't really matter on technically this whole what the new amount of the loan is or anything like that, because that's all going to be money that he still has to ask the bank for. Equity is what he's good for, and he's already been good for 20% of the loan plus all of these payments for the last 5 years, and that's what the bank consider and go, okay, you've already given this to us, we can give it back to you if you need it. So there's the answer to that problem. All right, and that calls our chapter on business formulas and all those concepts finished.